So imagine that you're playing dodgeball and the teacher just told you what the teams are. And you're like, oh man, on that team they've got Karen Carenson, she's in 7th grade, she's really good. And they've got Georgetown, he's in 8th grade, he's the best kid in the whole school. All the good kids are on that team. And then the teacher says, who's on your team? And she says, on your team it's just you and one angel. And you're like, oh no, an angel in dodgeball? We're gonna get killed. You would think that angels would not be good at dodgeball because as they're depicted in pop culture, I mean, what are they like? They're like, no, they're nice. They're kind and they're loving and they're gentle. Yeah, they are those things. But when it's needed, angels can be unbelievably powerful. And I'm talking literally unbelievably. This is what Swedenborg wrote about it. In the spiritual world, angels have so much power that if I were to highlight everything I have seen, it would strain credulity. You wouldn't believe it. And this is coming from the guy who's already telling you, I can talk to spirits and angels. I've traveled to the heavens and the hells. And even he is saying, dude, you would not believe me. I'm not going to tell you what they can do because you wouldn't believe it. But he does tell us some. And this, the story I want to share with you here comes in the context of kind of like a major, not a war in the spiritual world, but a time of intense change. He called it a judgment. This was when the divine was shaking things out. There's heaven and hell, and then there's an area in between called the world of spirits. And that world of spirits, this is in the 1700s in Swedenborg's day, had gotten so corrupt. There were so many people there who had bad intentions, who were deceitful, who were to the point where when you died and you went into the spiritual world, that's where the place you first go, there would be all kinds of spirits are trying to lead you in the wrong direction and fool you, inhibit your progress up to heaven. So something had to be done about that, and it was done through angels, and this is what he saw. This is how it went down.
If anything there is in the way and needs to be removed because it's opposed to the divine design, they raise and overturn it simply by an effort of will and a look. So I've seen mountains that were the abode of evil people leveled and overturned, sometimes shaken from end to end, as happens in our earthquakes. I've seen cliffs split down the middle right to the bottom and the evil people on them swallowed up. I've also seen angels scatter some hundreds of thousands of evil spirits and cast them into hell. A vast multitude is powerless against them. The skills and wiles and alliances of evil spirits amount to nothing. Angels see everything and dispel it instantly.
How's that for power? I'm talking about this is like Marvel superhero kind of level type stuff. Angels have that. Let's learn more about how they have that kind of power and what do they use it for and what takes their power away. So angels are very powerful. They would be great at dodgeball. But there's a particular dynamic in the angel power thing that you have to be aware of because the whole thing rests on this. Heaven and Hell 2:30. It does need to be known, though, that angels have absolutely no power on their own, but that all the power they have comes from the Lord. Further, they are powers to the extent that they recognize this fact. So power comes from God, and angels can sense this clearly a lot of the time. If they start to forget, though, because even angels, according to Swedenborg, angels are just you and I down the road. That is just us on the next stages of our progression in the afterlife. And, sometimes you let things go to your head. Let's say that you could, laser beam mountains apart and whatever else they were just doing. Maybe that goes to your head. If any angel starts to forget that the power is God's, they get a very tangible reminder. Any angels who believe that their power comes from themselves immediately become so weak that they cannot resist even a single evil spirit. This is why angels take absolutely no credit to themselves and turn down any praise or admiration for anything they have done, but attribute it all to the Lord. If you want a clear visual of this, angel is just like Tubi the Tube Man. There's Tubi. This is like an angel overflowing with power. Tubi is so powerful. Tubi can do amazing things. Tubi's the greatest. But if you unplug Tubi, you can't do nothing. You can't even move. You can't even wiggle. There is something that he's plugged into. Yeah, obviously with Tubi, we're talking about the electricity. What is this for angels? It is the divine truth emanating from the Lord that possesses all power in the heavens, because the Lord in heaven is divine truth united to divine good. To the extent that angels are open to this truth, they are powers. So when the power comes through inside of angels, that God emanates out some very real power, and the state of angels, the reason why angels are so powerful is they got a certain state of their mind. And states of mind are actually the arrangement of spiritual matter, just like our states of mind are affected by how the physical matter in your brain is arranged. Having the belief that power comes from God, that literally opens a part of their mind. And when it's open, that truth can, come on, let's go, Tubi. Come in, power them. Thank you. That's not a totally alien dynamic to us. You see this, for example, in Star Wars. You got this great power that's called the Force. And it's something that people are trying to tap into because they want to have power. But there are certain rules to accessing it. And the rules have to do with, do you surrender to it or you feel like you're the one using it? You know when Luke Skywalker is trying to block those little laser beams from that little robot, and he's like, I can't do it. And Obi-Wan Kenobi puts that helmet on, I think I'm remembering this right, puts that helmet on his head, and he's like, with the blast shield down, I can't even see. And he's like, you have to trust your instincts, or, and then he can do it. I think he does it, yeah. And it's because, it's a great analogy, because it's like no longer are you trusting your own calculations, but you're acknowledging that something greater than you takes you over and can do it. In the very pivotal scene at the end of that movie, when he's got to shoot that little torpedo in the middle of the Death Star, and he's targeting with the targeting computer, which is like an human ego, and he's like, I can do it. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi, spoiler alert, has died by that point, and he says, use the Force, Luke.
Use the Force, Luke.
And they're like, what? You turned your targeting computer off?
Luke, you switched off your targeting computer. What's wrong?
Because he's trusting this thing that's bigger than... That's exactly how it is with angels. Angels are open to this incredible power of truth from God. But they only open to it. It's not because God picks them, oh, you're good, I'm going to give you this power. It's because the acknowledgement of God and the alignment with the same kind of love for everyone that exists that God has, that opens up their hearts and their minds and allows the power to go through. Let's look at how angel power works. It sort of seems like with spiritual things you can think, oh, they just work because they work. But there's always a reason. There's always a way in which it works. So looking at ourselves, we all have unique personality. Nobody's exactly like anyone else. And so because of that, as part of your personality, you have intentions or goals. And the goals and intentions you have in general in life affects how you think. And it also affects how well you can determine what's really true and what isn't. And how well you recognize truth. Swedenborg puts it like this: whatever we understand, we call true. And whatever we intend, we call good. This is why each one of us is his or her own truth and own good. That doesn't mean that, oh, your truth is true for you, what you believe is good is good. There is absolute truth and absolute goodness. But everybody thinks they're following the truth. Everyone thinks they're doing what is okay to do or good to do. There's a spectrum of how closely our perceived truth and goodness are to the actual truth and goodness. So our intentions can be closer or further away from God's intentions. God's intentions are what you could also call divine love or universal love. And our understanding can be closer or farther away from God's universal point of view, which also could be called the truth or divine truth. So all of us are somewhere in there. Angels have, being people who are in the afterlife, have unique intentions and goals. All of angels' intentions are good intentions, because to become an angel is the category of angel means your goals are above a minimum threshold aligned with the goals of goodness, which is to say, the goals of God. That's why they're in heaven. But some angels' goals and angels' minds are deeper and broader than others, with more desire to do what's good to everybody. So there's a spectrum. That's why there's these different levels of heaven that Swedenborg is talking about. It's not because there's different zip codes. It's because there's different ways of being and different opening up to God. So the kinds of intentions, love, and goodness in each angel's heart affects how much the truth flows into them. There's infinite divine truth everywhere. Anyone can access it. How you arrange your mind impacts how much you can have it. You have to have both. You have to have your mind open in such a way that you can receive both goodness and truth, because neither has power without the other. Angels are open to divine truth to the extent that they are open to divine goodness, since all the power that truths have comes from goodness. Truths apart from goodness have none. Further, all the power good has is by means of truth. Good has no power apart from truths. Power arises from the union of the two. That's why angels are powerful, because angels are human beings who want to do what's right and who understand what is true and can use that in order to do what's right. Goodness and truth are like this dynamic duo, and they got to be together if you're going to make this thing that we call power. To the extent to which an angel is truth from the divine and good from the divine, that angel is a power, because the Lord is with her or him to that extent. It's the same thing to say God's truth and God's goodness as just saying God. God's right there inside you. Further, since no one enjoys exactly the same good and truth as anyone else, one angel does not enjoy the same power as another. In the intro, you heard Swedenborg giving this example of witnessing how angelic power plays out in the spiritual world. We've talked, remember, in past videos about how heaven is organized like the human body, and different parts of the angelic heaven, different people there play different roles. Different communities have functions that match the different functions of all the different parts of the human body. Well, some parts of the body have more power, more physical power than others. What's the part of the body that's the most powerful or empowers us to take action? It's arms. Arms and hands and shoulders, like that. If you need to move something, that's what you do it with. So the angels who constitute the arm in the grand human of heaven, or correspond to the arm of that grand human, have the most power, because they are the ones who more than any others are focused on things true. And remember, you got to have goodness. Good flows into their truths from the entire heaven. It's just like if you have to move somebody's couch because, you couldn't find an excuse not to help them move. You do it with your hands and arms, but resources from the whole body go into that. Your brain is contributing do this here, do that there. Your nerves, blood is flowing in from the circulatory system. The oxygen the lungs are pulling in, it's getting sent right to the muscles in your arms. All of that is getting focused. Your back is bracing in a certain way, your legs. They're all doing their part to make the arms as strong as they can possibly be, to just get that couch through the door and let these people live their new life. Here's a wild thing that Swedenborg saw in the afterlife to do with the power of the arm of the grand human. Sometimes a bare arm appears in heaven that has so much power that it could crush any obstacle, even if it were a boulder on earth. I just crush a boulder in my arm. Once it moved toward me. I don't know why I did that. Once it moved toward me, and I saw that it could crush my bones to powder. But it didn't. It didn't crush Swedenborg's bones, and it wouldn't crush your bones either, because angels are powered by heavenly love. So they have power, but what they don't have is aggression. Meaning they don't want to attack or destroy anybody. The drastic results that can come from angelic power happen with a dynamic like this. I have been able to see how much power angels have through truths from good, from the fact that when angels simply look at them, evil spirits fall down in a faint and no longer look human, and that this lasts until the angel looks away. The reason this sort of thing results from the gaze of angels is that their sight comes from the light of heaven, and heaven's light is divine truth. It's not that they're like, I'm gonna look at you so you no longer can do what you're doing. I'm coming after you. But just what the truth is naturally destroys falsity and evil. If you're doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing, and that by the nature of evil things, you don't want people to know that you're doing them because people would stop you, or that gets destroyed by the truth. That your plans get ruined. People know how to avoid you. It just naturally cannot survive in the truth. Swedenborg says all the people in hell are preoccupied with deliberate distortions, so they have no power against what is true and good. So from their end, evil people who are in hell, nobody has to be in hell. You're in hell when you say, well, you know what I want? You know what my particular goodness is I'm going to harm people. I'm going to dominate people for my own pleasure. I just hate people, and I'm going to act on that. I want to get revenge on people. I'm going to act on that. I'm going to rule over people. That's what you're doing, and you convince yourself of falsities to justify that. When that runs into divine truth and divine love, actually the reality of what it is, all these other people that you're doing this to are human beings, that what you're doing is despicable, and that is like, my world is getting destroyed. But what the angels are doing, bringing that truth, is nonviolent. It's just, I'm just here with reality. It's just shining a light on the situation. Cool, man. Okay, there's some mechanism. How is that power relevant in our lives today? In this episode, I'm sitting here and telling you angels have this great power, and they're so powerful. But if you look out at the world, I mean, you don't see much overt evidence of angelic power. You don't see angels coming down and clobbering all the bad guys in the world. So you might have a hard time believing that they're powerful. However, you are experiencing their power throughout your life, because there are spiritual battles going on in our minds and in our spirits, in our consciousness all the time. According to Swedenborg, all the negative stuff in your mind, all the negative thoughts and feelings that make life difficult and that are trying to mess you up, those are attacks from hell. That your mind does not naturally just generate anti-you material. Those are attacks from evil spirits. So angelic power is what confronts and pushes that back. If you think it's bad now, it would be the fact that anyone survives, what with the tenacity and intensity of the desire from hell to ruin human beings' lives. We only survive because of the angelic power that confronts that, pushes that back, and brings us back into states of hope and clarity. If you've ever come out of some kind of dark spiral and you're back up, the angels dragged you out there, and they guide us to the tools that open us up to the goodness of heaven and the truth of heaven, actual goodness and actual truth. We did a video called Spiritual Warfare. You can check that out if you want to know more about that. But there's more. It's not just the protecting and the battling for the human mind. Angelic power is what keeps your body working. Believe it or not, says Swedenborg, we cannot move a step without the inflow of heaven. So if just now you want to stand up or walk across the room, it was angel power that did that. To you, you might say, that's ridiculous. You might be saying that to everything I've said so far this episode. But Swedenborg could tell this vividly. He actually had experiences of being able to tell, when I do this thing, it's actually heaven coming in, powering my arm to do this thing, or powering my head to move over. He could feel it that directly. So heaven is not only powering your voluntary emotions, but he said your heartbeat, the activity of your internal organs is powered by heaven. Heaven is also involved in your positive voluntary actions. It influences your mind towards what is good, allows you to think that. He says in Heaven and Hell 2:28, our intention and discernment are governed by the Lord through angels and spirits. And since this is true of our intention and discernment, it is true of all aspects of our bodies, because these latter come from the former. So, which sets of forces prevail in our own minds, whether the angels win or the hellish spirits win, and this depends also on which side you give your support to, that ends up affecting the actions that we take here in the world. So that's how the angels around you can have power here on the physical level, is by you. It is through you. And anytime we allow that influence to make us act in a good way, that's angel power taking that last step. Because there is free will, that heaven and hell can battle all they want. In the end, we choose who wins. And we can stop angelic influence from coming into the world. Angels, when they're in us, are urging us to do everything that's good, which is really the Lord through them urging us to do what's good. We have to take the final step of allowing that to happen. So how much angel power there is in the world, it's entirely up to us. Entirely up to us. We're the gatekeepers. What are we gonna let through into the world? Our own minds are in the process of becoming angelic, should we so choose. So we can be developing the angelic power that's in angels in us as well. Some days you may not feel powerful. You may feel like Tubi when he is deflated. You may feel like Tubi in his current state. However, we are angels in the making. We are angels in training. We can become powers for good in the world. All you got to do is do the same process that angels do to get to where they are. So, one, realize that all power comes from God. And that's not something you can just do right away. It's something you got to work at. But if you allow it, you start to see, oh yeah, that is true. That is true. Also, you got to develop a desire for goodness and usefulness toward others. That is the love that drives the truth. That will lead you to a true perspective on life. Earlier, I talked about how angels need goodness in their heart and truth in the mind to have any power. The two elements need each other. Swedenborg wrote, the same holds true for faith and love. Since it's all the same whether you say truth or faith, since everything that makes up faith is true, and whether you say good or love, since everything that makes up love is good. What you believe needs to be fueled by mutual love to have any genuine, lasting power to make life better for yourself or others, to make it actually true. And a desire to help and be of service has to have true concepts to guide how to put that desire into practice to make life better. Learning about what makes angels powerful can help us know how to be powerful, how to invite the Lord's powerful goodness and truth into our lives, to make things happen, to make a difference, to make you like this.